Welcome to the station crew. Enjoy your stay.
Alright, welcome back to Space Station 14. This will be another round taking place on Wizard's Den's Lizard server. And, as is rarely the case, this will be an unedited round. Mainly because it was so short for me. As you can see, we've joined mid-round. We're taking the arrival shuttle from planet side to the station. I'm currently doing my setup. And this is taking place, I think a month or two ago. So it's not exactly recent, but it's not some of my older footage either. Anyway, we make it on station. It's about 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the round, thereabouts. There's only one thing to do when you get on station on mid-round is to first see that there's bolted doors from arrivals, for some reason. And see what's going on. Are things spaced? No. Okay, well, you can continue. Is it red alert? No, it's green alert. You can continue. You can see I'm checking. How's the manifest looking? How many people are doing what? Is engineering about to run out of power? Eh. There were the chief engineer, 2 technical assistants, and a station engineer before we got here, so it should be maybe fine. And just as we get to engineering, Zeds, aka zombies, get called out. So, gotta gear up. Make your way to the locker, get a suit and everything else. You'll be needing it for zombies. The classic tactic for engineering is to fortify down the department, so put down electric grills all over the places, because zombies lose their gloves when they turn. So they are always shocked by grills, or electrified thing. You can see here I'm looking for weird noises. I'm looking for a first confirmation, but there was just a solar flare that happened, so communications were cut. It's like we're looking for a sign that this is real. Provided alert just pops up. So now we have somewhat confirmation. I'm trying to say to other engineering what I'm about to do. I look outside for a bit, see if I can fortify the outside of engineering. So I start doing that. I'm going to be making fences around engineering when I see a zombie right there, a medical doctor. So now we know the infection is already pretty bad if medical doctors are infected, and they made their way all the way to engineering. They seem to be alone. But because this is a somewhat more recent game footage, zombies infecting you is quite a lot quicker than in my older footage. The infection is much stronger, so if you do get bit, you won't have much time before you turn, which means usually either you have to make your way to a medical to get a cure, and if medical doctors are infected, then that's not going to look probable, or you have to take all possible attempts to avoid zombies. Anyway, somebody wants to leave. I've already bolted the door, but there's a side door in engineering they can leave through. It's somewhat discreet, though not exactly. So make sure to electrify the doors and to place some HV wires below the windows. I've taken into a habit of not taking with me a T-ray scanner, just to make more space, because engineering is always strapped for space. Unless you're wearing a duffel bag, but engineering is already so slow, having a duffel bag is just too much for me. Anyway, so we rectified a couple of doors. They've said that they've seen zombies right outside, which is not good. But you can see the medical doctor once again, just outside. So, we have the first layer of doors being reinforced. Now we go for the windows and the other walls. And somebody comes in. Because people keep opening the door. So we make the second line of defenses, which is usually a good idea to do. If somebody opens up the first line of defense and gets infected, the second line will hold. Usually you just are reduced to making lines and lines of defenses around engineering. that zombies will take so long to devour it that they'll get bored and leave. Or that evac will come, so you can just leave engineering with all the zombies trapped in here. Anyway, make sure to make all the doors electrified. People are also taking the care of making electrified fences, so that's double layered defenses. I'm also making the doors close faster, so there's less chance of a breach happening, or if there is a breach, it'll only let in one zombie. Anyway, we make our way around engineering. Now that the front has been taken care of, and we can see that this, other people have done the sides. We can go for the final line of defenses, all the way back here. So if engineering ever gets pushed all the way back here, then you know it's bad. But at least you'll have some layers still left to defend you.
Attention. The emergency
Anyway, Atmospheric
shuttle
says
has
that
been
they have booby-trapped the tech room. Which I don't know what that means, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be avoiding that area. With evac being called, it now means that if and or when evac gets here, and there are still zombies, they will try and overwhelm evac. Which means, usually, it's a good idea if you can try and get ahead of the zombies to defend evac, as survivors will try and make their way there. If zombies have overtaken evac, then the zombies will take the evac shuttle. But if you fortify evac, then you can hold the tide a bit. Here I try another idea I've had, is to take one of these engineering emitters, which do, they do some damage, some laser damage, and use it for the evac defense as like some kind of static defense gun. You could try and funnel the zombies into its path or something. But people took the time in this round to fix all the singularity cage holes, so you can't make your way to space from there. So I'm thinking of what other ways to space are there. There's the first thing that comes to mind in this instance is that there's a solars right next to engineering, but you just have to go to the tech room to get to it. So I make my way there. Also, I think right to my side here in that little nuclear locker airlock you just saw, that the right door that we just passed by led to space, so I could have gone there too. The chief engineer tells me that there's zombies between engineering and evac, so it's a bad idea to go out just outside to make our way to evac. I ask if I can go to the tech room, nobody answers, so I just get in there. You can see that Atmospheric is doing whatever it's doing. So anyway, we continue to make our way to space. I do quite like space on this map. It's just a pretty backdrop to look at. It makes for good for good glass floors. And it's quite relaxing too. Anyway, there's not many zombies that are wandering around in space. Usually because first they have to make it to space, and second because they'll be cold and slow in space, and third because if they do get spaced, like they walk off the tiles of the station, they'll have a very hard time getting it back as they don't have any hands to throw stuff. And usually they don't have a jetpack. You only have to have a jetpack while you're a zombie is if you're wearing it, which means you've given up your bag slot. Or you have a special mini jetpack, which just fits on your belt, or air canister slot. Anyway, because of the quite low low number of calls on common comms, it sounds like most people have been infected. We haven't taken any chances. We haven't left engineering or space, so we don't know the general situation of the station. But you can see here that there's a zombified hamster pursuing me, somewhat. And engineering yells into comms that they're sorry,
Attention.
and that the virus compels them, which means that it sounds like engineering is about to get sabotaged from the inside. So that's a good thing that we just left. Not exactly sure what happened, but it was probably bad. Anyway, you can see here the hamster, the zombified hamster. They only have one job, technically, is to get a bite on me, which would then infect me and turn me into a zombie, since there's no possible way for me to get a cure at this point. And because this is the evac dock, they can risk going into space, because they'll just be on the other side of evac. Here a Borg comes in. Usually Borgs are quite helpless during zombies. They can't harm the zombies. The zombies aren't supposed to harm them. But because Borgs are usually looking for any possible excuse to kill people, I asked them to kill Hammy, the hamster. But they're stupid, so they just space themselves. Borgs also don't have hands, and usually can't throw things. The only way Borgs can navigate in space is if they have if they're a salvage Borg with a grapple, and or a fire extinguisher module. We don't know. We never see this Borg again, so I'm pretty sure they had neither. Anyway, we can hear some zombies up there. So we have quite a time limit on how to install our defenses. There's no wires out here right now, but you can see an APC right here. Emitters need a yellow wire and an MV wire. And the APCs always have an MV wire connection, otherwise they're just disconnected. So I started making a little fort with this gun to defend myself. It could, I'm thinking, it could take on 2 zombies, maybe, if we had some proper defenses. I'm trying to funnel the zombies into a particular location by putting a flare, so they'll be like funneled into that direction. I make a glass box around the emitter. The zombies can't rush down the middle and attack. I hear some knocking. And here a chemist asks for help, and they have the cure, which is quite a good news. So I open the way to space. They leave and get a suit. I make sure to give them a nice exit using engineering solar. And we head outside. Now 2 people surviving. Because they have an emergency EVA suit, it doesn't protect well against cold. Usually if you stand on plated hole tiles, even though it's spaced, you'll be fine. However, these catwalks and rods do not protect against the cold of space, so they will get cold eventually. Now basically we just have to pass the time until evac gets here. Somebody asked if we have the cure, and we just happen to have the person who has the cure with us. There's no way to regroup anyway. They tell us what happened back there. But it sounds to me like they got killed by a zombie and were turned. Now we have to make our strategy for how to leave the station. If there really aren't any people left for the zombies to infect, and they take over evac, then the last thing they can possibly do is look around and search the station's escape pods for survivors. Now zombies don't have hands, so they can't check maps. And so they can go to space and just, look around space for evac pods and look inside for survivors. However, on this specific map, there's an indoor evacuation pod. So that was my plan. Go to an evac pod that's indoors with the emitter gun to hold up the zombies at the very least. It should help. You have to jiggle a bit inside the airlocks, making sure we can make our way there. And we start. We see a little mouse over there that's infected. But thankfully the chemist does have the cure, so we can afford to melee fight a couple of small critters. Even if they bite us, they won't do much damage, and we can cure ourselves of any infection. However, they managed to kill the mouse without getting hit or bitten. That's good. Next, one of the perks of being an engineer is to open airlocks whenever you want, and to have external access so you can get into evac pods. Like this one. So now we have to start fortifying. We have to survive 3 minutes before the evac pod leaves. In that time, we have to make sure that no zombie gets on board, otherwise we'll be quite screwed. So I try and start making my way to make some defenses again. We get the correct type of wire for the emitter. Make sure to anchor it in a direction that makes sense, aka northwards. Put some defenses around it so that zombies won't be able to attack it directly, at the very least. We almost ran out of RCD fuel, but thankfully we have another charge. I use my metal foam grenade to make a bunch of metal foam walls. And finish sealing off the emitter. So now we're mostly defended. Anyway, we now have metal foam walls all the way up to our evac pod, blocking the way. And a pseudo SSD crew. The other evac pod seems uninhabited. The one in front of us. So now we just wait, hiding in fear. Thankfully there aren't any more zombies, at least none we can hear. I start fortifying the door again, bolting it, electrifying it, making it quickly close, taking away the bolt light so people don't know that it's bolted. And we receive the announcement that we're about to launch. And so we make it out. Now we can just relax until we get on station, or whatever the evac pods ends up. It's kind of random. I don't know the exact details. Sometimes it ends up on Central Command, sometimes it ends up in space, sometimes it ends up in other, like, in space but right next to Central Command so you can just fly there. I don't know. Kind of weird. Also, I just realized that there's a light that was taken out, so we can light up our pod a bit. That was a shift. We arrive, there's zombies, and we have to survive. And we make it on the evac shuttle. Huzzah. But it's a bit boring since our friend is not totally here. So we gotta entertain ourselves. Since we're in an evac pod, there's not a lot of ways for it to get spaced at this point. So we take a small break. I do like this look of the engineering coat and beret, but ever since the spacing increases, I don't risk it. I only use the coat as extra storage, basically. This is a 4-tile item that can take up 6 tiles of items inside of its pockets. Also, because we're only in an evac pod, we don't know the exact time we have until we reach Central Command. I mean, I know now, but I don't know during the round. And I discovered where the light bulb that was taken out was hidden. So we can make a doubly light evac pod. Our friend comes back. And we arrive at Central Command. You can see that there weren't many survivors, about 7, and you can see 2 of the 7 right here. We make our way deeper inside Central Command and we start seeing some signs of not only are there zombies on the evac shuttle, but also there are other uninfected people. As you can see, I'm thinking of making my way to the bar, but then I start thinking, why don't I go to engineering instead? And right then and there, I see a Seaburn agent, which is usually the people who are in charge of taking out zombies, kind of, maybe. Except they usually suck, they don't have any infection resistance, their guns are 2 shots, and then that's it. They have the cure on them. But yeah, they're not very good. They're not very good at their job of killing zombies, which usually just makes them more zombies. Anyway, we're trying to escape inside of engineering. Finding a weapon, anything really, but I've been too hurt now. Won't be able to kill them, especially since they're in full combat armor. So, we get infected at the end of the round, which is not really, you know, important. What is important is that this was quite fun, and quite in... For being a late arrival, this played out quite well. Anyway, see you guys next time. Okay, bye, okay, bye, okay, bye.